This meeting is being recorded.
You're good to go? Okay. So I'll call to order the committee of the whole meeting at 5:33. Let's see, first up, the good of the order. Any council members have anything for this? No. I would just say then that thanks for those of you who came to the council chat. We did have one person show up with a list of things. So I was gonna send it in email to everyone just to recap. It's just I was out of town and then I was sick, so I haven't had a chance. And there's a couple of things that would need staff response, so I can pass that along and then just explain all that, and then hopefully we can hear back as well once if we respond to that person. So I think that's all I had. Oh, one more thing I'll just bring up now. Next week is a PIC meeting for Sound Cities Association. I am out of town. I think Rick is still out of town and he's the alternate. It's not the end of the world if we miss a meeting, but if anyone, really wanted to go, you certainly could sit in and you could just let me know and I can email you the information. But other than that, we will just pass on that meeting. And that's all I have. So what's that? Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I can't remember if the person who came to the council chat brought up the lighting at that corner. I know she was concerned about, some of the trees and maybe the safety and something there. Do you know what I'm talking about? Right, Judd Park 278 comes out. Yeah, just east of Judd Park.
Yeah, I stepped away from the table for a little bit, so I might have missed it. No, I waited until after she was done. I don't know.
Anyway, they took out some trees at that corner. It kind of been brought up many times about, the lighting isn't great. A lot of people actually cross the street right there. A little bit tricky, and so I didn't know if some of the trees were coming down in preparation for some possible work there, because I know we talked about improving. Oh, yeah. Maybe Steve would know.
Yeah.
The location where they took the big cottonwood out, right at 278th and 150th. In the past, there've been discussion about, be nice if there was some better lighting, better visibility, a lot of spots right there. Is any of that in preparation or a thought in the future?
No.
Would it make it easier if
We just want to get that.
that was the
And we were picking up all the storm debris from the trees that were hammered and just in the middle.
Okay, just curious, because someone came to our council shot and was talking about that area again. And so I was just kind of hopeful. I don't know if that's something. I don't know if we have any bandwidth for anything, but I know it's been brought up for years. So I just wanted to put that out there.
I'll follow up with an email too, with some bandwidth, so. All right, anything else? Okay, so next we have our review of regular meeting agenda, which is pretty slim. City Administrator McNabb.
Yes, so the food truck ordinance needs to be moved from presentations and placed on unfinished business for discussion and decision. And there will be a presentation as well, but want to make sure that the council meeting agenda accurately reflects the decision.
Okay. So the presentation will not happen under presentations, but it'll all happen as one item under unfinished.
Correct.
Okay. All right, sounds good. I don't see, let's see. Oh, just the usual on consent stuff. Okay. All right, so let's head out to our first discussion item, exemptions for vandalism or external use with our city administrator, Cynthia McNabb.
Hi, yes, good afternoon, council, members of the public, mayor, Oberlander. So we've had a request to bring to council a potential amendment to our code. So our finance director was working with a member of the community on a utility bill that had gotten pretty significant. The individual homeowner was out of town, and during that time, not entirely sure what happened, but a leak was generated on the homeowner's property that subsequently generated a very substantial utility bill. And so Finance Director Mason, along with her team, took a look at what neighboring jurisdictions do for two different kinds of potential utility bill adjustments, either for leaks or for vandalism. And so we took a look at our neighboring jurisdictions for both different categories to find out what other cities did to potentially adjust utility bills for leaks. And so the first, and I've included this information in the council packet. So it's there in the link. The first category is adjustments to the utility bills for leak adjustments other than inside the home. And so we took a look at Seattle, Woodinville, Tukwila, Bellevue, Wenatchee, Carnation, Monroe, Snohomish, Sammamish, Snoqualmie, Mercer Island, Redmond, and Bothell, and all but Woodinville, Bellevue, and Wenatchee offer some relief to homeowners if a leak occurs that generates a really high utility bill. They all come in slightly different forms, and we can go over those in your council packet. You have a cover page along with different types of code adjustments for those. And then we also looked at adjustment for vandalism. All but Mercer Island is no for vandalism concerns. And for the most part, those would be typically covered through a homeowner's insurance policy or through filing a police report that you would then give to a homeowner's policy. And so I'll pause there for any questions about kind of what the concern is, why we're bringing it forward.
That's where you continue.
Okay, all right, no questions. So, at this point, I guess my question I have to council is there an interest in building a proposal that offers relief to homeowners for, water leakages? And then from there, of the jurisdictions that we've included their code sections. And so, kind of wanted an idea from council, like one is more appetizing than the other, or more interesting in terms of the kind of relief that you might offer homeowners. And we can kind of go through them and the different types of relief that might be offered to homeowners. Sure.
Can I ask a quick question? I was still struggling trying to get my documents to open, and I might have missed it. I thought we already offered leak adjustments to customers, or was that kind of just done without code that specified it? Or
No, we do have leak adjustments in our code, but they don't cover this situation. So our code allows for no more than one adjustment per account over a 3-year period will be granted. So if the customer wishes an adjustment in a billing charge due to a water leak, a written request must be submitted to the finance director. The written request must include the date and proof of an adequate repair of the leak. So we do have some, but it's a single adjustment of no more than a certain amount in a 3-year period. So it doesn't cover an extremely significant jump in a bill.
so what exactly was how exactly did it not fall into this? Like, I don't see a specific dollar amount.
Director Mason, can you chime in?
Yes, good evening, council. Dana Mason, Finance Director. So the city of Duvall covers leaks once every 3 years that occur outside of the building or under the building. It doesn't cover leaks due to vandalism or leaks that occur inside the building. And so what we're trying to do is determine, we do have homeowners that get a leak inside their building. They don't discover it for some point, for a period of time. And then they ask us for an adjustment and we have to say, no, our code only provides for leaks outside of the building or under the building. And then we've also had a few customers who have had leaks due to vandalism. So maybe they've been out of town and someone has just turned their water on. when they're gone. And that is not all, that's not covered by our leak adjustment or adjustment policy as well.
So I guess it's just, if it was inside the house, how would someone not notice that there was water leaking everywhere? I guess that's what I'm thinking. Typically, under the house or outside is one where you wouldn't notice it, but an interior one, I'm trying to figure out, like, what scenario will we?
So we actually have an employee who just had a leak in her house, and it was inside the wall and going down into their crawl space. So they didn't know it was happening for quite some time. So there's things like that where you just don't see the pipes in the walls, or you know, and even outside leaks can take quite some time to discover. So we actually offer up to 3 months of adjustment, and we charge them 10% of wholesale over the amount that their average bill is. So we look at 3 months, 3 years of average bills, and then take that, say, okay, that's what your amount really should be. And then we charge them 10% of wholesale for the leak water. So a 10% plus wholesale, I should say.
Mayor, oh, go ahead. Sorry. No, it's okay, go ahead.
So Director Mason, the purpose of this city council is to determine whether or not we want to offer adjustments for internal leaks. Correct?
Right, if we want to broaden our leak adjustment or the just the adjustments for
Mayor,
for things like vandalism.
go ahead, Mayor.
Thanks, Mayor Pro Tem. Yeah, as far as inside the house, I have a really strong opposition to the city accommodating for people's infrastructure within their homes. You know, there are warranty programs in addition to homeowners insurance that cover this. We have access to a program through National League of Cities that's super low cost to our customers. I can say as a customer of the city of Duvall, taking my mayor hat off, we have in fact had 2 indoor leaks within our walls, one of which came down into our laundry room. We have no idea how long it was leaking. The other was in our garage. Our hot water heater was leaking. And we didn't know because it was in a wall and there was furniture in front of it. But I do not believe it's the city's responsibility to be providing adjustments and relief for basically either poor construction or lack of routine maintenance of homes. I also, you know, looking at the vandalism policy, I think there's a real difficulty in proving vandalism versus somebody just not paying attention, or how do you know that that person hasn't filled up their hot tub and claimed that something was vandalized? I think that's more, if there's vandalism, it's more of a police issue, but
I can prove it.
Not in favor of providing.
I can prove I was.
He was muted, I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, I'm really not in favor of providing additional relief when it's on somebody's own property. That's a homeowner's responsibility, and it's a slippery slope. And I would question whether or not that we could end up getting in trouble over the long run.
Before I go back to you, Corey or Mike, did you have any questions or comments?
No, I'm kind of surprised you provide any relief for any water leaks, including ones that are outside of the house. Didn't know that existed.
Did you have any?
Just at first, I mean, I don't think there's any reason to change what's currently in place. I mean, to me, it seems, I agree with the mayor. I think like if it happens inside your house, that's something that's totally inside your own, you know, your jurisdiction as the homeowner. And then the outside, the vandalism thing is really, really tough, because like, what if you clear your pipes for the winter and you leave all your faucets open and you turn the power back on and you don't realize the very back faucet's been running for 2 or 3 days? It's like that, you know, how does that fall into it? Like, it just gets to be, I think there's just too much gray area in there. And for me, it feels like there's a lot of gray area in what would constitute as like vandalism. You could say something is that it, I don't know. It just opens up to me a bit of a can of worms, but maybe I don't, that's just my knee-jerk reaction to it. So I would not be in favor of adding it.
I'll chime in really quick and then we'll go to Jennifer again. I think, you know, we personally had a leak once years ago and called up the city like, man, our water bill is crazy high, what's going on? And the city was agreed about checking, make sure it wasn't their problem, because it certainly could be. Once they determined everything up to the house was good. Well, yeah, we figured out we had a toilet that was running all the time and we didn't realize it, you know, and we got that fixed. But I'm more curious about, you know, depending on what the source is, like who's responsible for that, you know, is it like a home insurance type thing? Is it, if it's vandalism, like what avenue do you go through? I struggle because it could be endless, you know, I mean, everyone could suddenly have a bunch of problems, and I mean, at what point do we stop? I don't wanna accidentally, I don't know, go down a path that's just not sustainable. What do you have?
Yeah, so for me, I'm not as much concerned about the city not being made whole, because I think and I think what I'm understanding right is the person still has to pay for the actual cost of the water. And so our utility charges, our water charges have a built-in kind of overhead infrastructure type cost. And once everyone pays that in, the actual cost of the water to the city is maybe a third of our rates. I don't know, maybe Director Lanchesky could weigh in, but so as long as the cost to the city, which is excess water usage, if they paid the cost of the actual water, so they aren't taking any money away from anyone else, I don't have any problem covering that. Now, if we were going to waive their entire bill, which would include the actual cost that we had to pay for that water, I wouldn't be in favor. Do you see how there's kind of that middle ground where the city is made whole, we are reimbursed for the water they use, but they aren't being charged this huge upcharge rate of water that includes infrastructure? Like, they've already paid for the pipes to their house and the routine maintenance. So why should they pay that upcharge on, you know, a month where they had 10 times more water usage? Like, that didn't suddenly make their pipes cost 10 times more to get to their house. I mean, they're there. I hope that makes sense. So kind of back off the overhead charge on the excess water. So I wouldn't have a problem with that, as long as the city is made whole for our cost of the water. Because we purchase our water from Seattle. I don't know if everyone knows that. And we know how much it costs. So I don't know, Director Lanchesky, do you know? Yeah. Like about.
We're doing some quick math.
Okay, cool.
We pay in dollars per CCF, which is CCF is 100 cubic feet, and we charge, right? We're talking about gallons.
Right.
If the $1.67 per 100 CCF, and 100 CCF per 1 CCF, which is 748 gallons. So the overhead is absolutely built in.
Right,
Right.
exactly.
And I think an important point, just, you know, as a purveyor, is quantifying our water purchase, consumption, and loss, because we do lose water. We try to, we're trying to report it. We are at about 3.7% water loss, which is, you know, leaky pipes, broken pipes that we discover, not a day, not a week, or a month after we, you know, find them. So it's good to know where it's going. It's also good to know that it's fixed. There's a fine line, in my opinion, between fixing it and waiting a while because it might not cost me as much. What does it matter? Like, I know what I mean, but water consumption is handled because we only have, right, the water we have on the earth is the water down here. So, I don't know what you did or encourage wasting, so I think that's something to consider too.
Yeah, I mean, I would still expect people to prove that they repaired whatever was causing the leak, and they pay for the water they actually used, whatever the wholesale price is. Anyway, that's where I stand on it.
So
To clarify, that's clearly what happened. They paid for the water that they use, like that's the thing, I mean, I totally understand what you're saying, but I didn't hear clearly that that's what happens. So they're clearly paying for it, that's definitely, and they just kind of get a break on the overage charges that we would charge, and that, you know, that's a little different, but it isn't covered.
I think I think the requests come in many forms. You know, one form is a request for a complete waiver of the water charge when it's excessive. I don't know that we've really ever had the mechanism to kind of parse out overhead versus water use as a way to offer an adjustment.
So I guess to answer your question, I don't.
Right, okay. That's an interesting road ahead, but we don't have the actual answer on it, so.
Yeah, and I mean, if there's an interest in developing that kind of proposal, I mean, Steve and I would have to do some work on trying to figure out what that calculation would look like. And I can bring it back to council if there's an interest in doing something like that.
For some reason, I thought Director Mason said something about being charged 10% of wholesale on the total. So do we already do that? I mean, I kind of feel like maybe we already do that.
Yeah, so our process is that when people apply for the leak adjustment, they have to show us that the leak has been fixed. And usually that's a receipt from a plumber, which can be pretty expensive. And or if they fixed it themselves, they show us a picture of the repair being done. So the hole in the ground and the new little piece that they put in there. And then maybe they have a receipt from Duvall hardware. And then we come up with their average usage for the 3 months or up to 3 months that they're asking for. And then we charge them wholesale plus 10% for that, anything over the average use. So they have to pay for the average use, and then we charge them wholesale plus 10% for everything else.
I think that's totally reasonable. And that takes care of my concerns that we're made whole.
Okay. So any interest in changing code or directing myself and Director Laniszewski and Director Mason to pursue a different avenue?
I don't have any interest in extending the coverage to inside the house or under the house. And like I said earlier, I'm surprised that we reimbursed them something for water leakage on their property between the street and their house. So, you know, it's a total surprise to me that the city would do that.
Any other thoughts?
More question than a thought.
Yeah, go ahead.
What's the volume of actual complaints, like, or requested adjustments? That would be my curiosity. Because one of the things I think about when I hear this is that if you change the code, then it casts a much wider net on what's inside the coverage boundary, right? And so if that coverage boundary gets way wider, then what does that do to just the process that the city has to deal with like, well, actually, this happened, then this happened, then are you fielding 5x, 10x? I guess there's no way to know, but it would be interesting to know what the number of requests are now versus what that could potentially be impact wise. Because if all of a sudden it's a wide open net, you're all day long taking calls of like, hey, my bill seems high. Can you guys take a look?
I can tell you we average about 4 leak adjustments, and that's outside of the ones that actually go through. So I would say 4 to 5 a month. But we do, and then we get, I will ask our utility billing finance associate how many requests that we get for inside the house that we actually say, I'm sorry, that doesn't meet our policy and we can't help you. So I'll see if I can come up with those numbers for you.
I have one quick question, and then Director Laniszewski, and then Councilmember Naplin, and then Supple. If I can, I'll try and remember that. My question is, if we were to change something right now, it sounded like there was something that didn't fall within what we have allowed right now. So if we were to go toward changing something, I mean, that wouldn't apply to anything that's already happened, right?
Correct. And so in order to change and offer more relief, we would have to do a code adjustment. And we would then have to decide that the code adjustment was going to be retroactively applied, which would potentially capture quite a few people whose requests were made but denied.
Okay, Director Laniszewski.
Councilmember Lovitz, I was gonna ask for a relative amount of monthly questions and answers, so even my question.
Okay. I think it was Naplin and then Supple.
Yeah, I just was looking here at the Woodinville one, and I think it kind of clears up the difference between someone who's not maintaining their property and you know, something really being undetectable. And so number 2, under Woodinville's policy, it says the customer's leak must be deemed undetectable by the district. So the district would be able to review the situation. Like, is it hidden in a wall, leaking into your crawl space, and you would have never known? You know, it's not a maintenance issue. It's, and then it says, no adjustments will be granted for internal plumbing leaks, which are considered a household maintenance responsibility. So I feel our staff would have a level of, you know, being reasonable on this and being able to distinguish between something that's obviously, you know, a person hadn't been maintaining it versus an actual undetectable leak. I think that's a reasonable cost. So, and like I said, the city is made whole. The cost that we paid for the water plus 10% plus their normal utility bill would still be paid for. This is just the excessive cost of the water.
Well, yeah, I'm just concerned about where this could be. With other homeowner issues, if you extend it inside the house, what about apartments? I mean, there's a lot of condos and townhomes and apartments that are being built in here. That could potentially really increase the amount of coverage that we're being asked to pay for.
Yeah. You, go ahead, Cynthia, and then Steve.
Yeah, I mean, so if we were to make an adjustment, we'd also have to adjust for what it looks like for our staff to be involved in entering people's homes to do that investigation.
I think they take pictures. No.
Yeah, I don't. So, I mean, that would be something that we would have to consider in a code revision as well, what that might look like and build policy around that, which we also presently do not have.
Okay. Did you still have a question?
Couple points. So apartments are a different animal. We don't require metering for unit, we require metering for building. Typically, they do metering per unit plumbing wise. We always recommend metering per unit after building, because building may house 5 units, right? So then they handle their own internal metering, we send them a bill, it's a graduated bill, right, and where you consume and where you pay, so the rest of the case and not charging. But the inside of the home, I'm not very interested in that business, because I'm gonna send 2 guys in, because no one's ever going by themselves. And then that will open up Pandora's box. They got my floor dirty, they scuffed my wall, they went into the crawl space, and then I got rats. Like, the amount of things that we deal with are pretty, like, there's always, unfortunately, someone asking for something else when we try to do something. We currently go to the house, folks, bid of the house, we do leak check, we do pressure checks. We provide tablets and other items to, help determine if you have a leaking toilet. There's things that we do that I really don't want to encourage going inside. I'd rather take, honestly, is their word for it, get a plumbing receipt and move on, like, whatever. But I really don't want to get into the business of going into homes. I'm gonna carry boogies and I got tool belts and, it's just.
Well, so I want to make sure we save time for our last item as well. We are missing 3 council members tonight as well, so I'm just wondering at this point, I don't know if we'll have enough direction, so I guess you can kind of nod, or I don't know how we do this in the cow, but I think I heard from you, you're not interested. Interested over here?
I'm not interested, I don't think
Okay.
there's enough to really merit it, but
Okay,
I'm down, I'm fully willing to hear from everybody else in council before we make a decision.
and you're not in your head, you're interested.
Yeah, and I agree. We already honor under the house. And so we don't go in and crawl into the crawl space to prove it for that. There's pictures, receipts of repair. So I'm not that concerned that an undetectable in the walls in the house is that much different than in the crawl space in regards to the work it would take to verify. So I'm I don't know about the vandalism on that, and it makes me uncomfortable.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, go ahead.
So one more plug, one more thought. We do have AMR automated metering systems budgeted. We haven't gotten to the work. What that would allow, and that may move anyone's real contemplation of bill management. That allows the interface of the homeowner to set alarms. If I use more than 100 gallons a day, it's an instantaneous system. And there would be no excuses for not knowing I have a 1,000 CPF bill. Right? So I guess we probably should have talked about that maybe before we talk about additional policy, because that would eliminate the need for anybody really not knowing they weren't having a leak to the tune of sure of toilet leaking for a month. Does that up? It doesn't seem like it will, but it will. But if you have a database that sends data every 5 minutes and you're seeing an increase and it's 3 AM and you're running through water and you set a provision to give you an email, like you can go check your account, like that's budgeted, that's real, we want to do it. It's just time based on getting it done. Honestly, I'd rather prioritize that because it saves us a lot of other things work-wise on top of building conundrums. So just a thought.
I really like that idea a lot, and I think it could address a large, a lot bigger area, you know, for people and help our customers a bit more overall. I'm not opposed to hearing more at a future point. I'm just not, I'm always hesitant to, you know, move too quick on something for a one-off. And so I think policy wise, I'm not ready at this point to move on. There's 3 others that aren't here right now, but it sounds like we're more in the not interested right at the moment. But I think that's a really good point what Director Lanishevsky brought up, and that could be really, really beneficial to everybody to help keep tabs. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I'm happy to bring this to a later council meeting at some point in the future to talk about that project and that program. And you know, how it might help our residents.
Go ahead.
Oh, what brought this up on the agenda in the first place? Maybe you mentioned it, but I forgot.
A request from Director Mason.
Oh, okay.
But I think maybe in the future, if that comes forward, it would be really helpful. And then maybe that leads to us looking more, you know, closely at the policy if we need to make changes to help accommodate that. Sorry, go ahead, Director Mason.
Oh, I was just gonna say that we had a resident who requested that we bring this forth. And since we had so many other, you know, other inside leaks where people were like, ah, gosh, this is a really high bill. It just seemed like a really good time to bring it forth.
Well, thank you. That will wrap that up. Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, with our next item, economic development policy, again with the city administrator McNabb.
Okay, I will pass these down. And Councilmember Supple, I'll leave one for Councilmember Mercer. I'll pass these this way. So as we discussed at the last council meeting, we're gonna look at an activity for this council meeting at how to prioritize some of the economic development activities that the community identified that they would be interested in. And so what I have up on the wall is that activity, and so I kind of wanted to walk through it first. So you all got dots, and I'm sure you've all participated in a dot exercise. You can use all of your dots on one activity. You can split them up between multiple, so use your dots however you want to prioritize what the community said in terms of the projects that they were interested in the city doing. I did go ahead and take the poll results that Councilmember Schaefer sent to everyone. So most of these here, which is what you'll be voting on, are what came from the survey as pre-identified projects. But I did pull from some of the comments, additional comments, a couple of other items that really this one, city marketing, apologize for my poor handwriting. Flashing lights at sidewalks is kind of a build on of enhancing sidewalk safety. So a couple of these are from the comments. Back here, I created 3 parking lots, but I wanted you all to see them.
So parking lot number one are items that would be into public funds, if we use general fund money to do that. So things like frontage improvements specific to a business, we can't really do because it would be a gift of public funds. Landscaping improvements for individual businesses and sidewalk clearing for businesses, all of those would be a gift of public funds. When you look at the comments in that survey, there are quite a few that ask for the city to take on business, snow and leaf clearing, but we really can't use general funds to benefit a business in that manner. Parking lot number two are items within the survey that are really not feasible, so a small theme park, city built small theme park that probably isn't feasible for a number of reasons. As well as more lanes on roads out of town. We don't have a lot of direction or control over 203 and roads that aren't ours. But then there were some items I put on parking lot number 3 that could be included in a new city hall. So there were quite a few comments for more city parking, city provided parking that would benefit businesses. There was a comment on meeting space as option for catering. When we were at NLC, we saw a really cool project in Mount Vernon that has a kitchen that they're using for innovation and kind of micro businesses. So there was recent, like 2 weeks ago, we're able to see or was that last week? Oh my gosh, when were we at NLC?
Yeah.
So I just saw an example of this, it was really interesting. A fountain and splash park and a business center to provide space for small businesses. All of these things could be included in a city-owned facility. So, you know, just wanted you all to see it. Right now, probably not in a budget, in the budget that we have for economic development, but certainly here, Ward City Parking also shows on up over here. As I think one of the, maybe not, maybe I didn't put it here. But there were requests for more additional parking. So at the same time as council is working on this list, city staff are gonna do this exercise over here, which is looking at the different projects that you all are voting on, having an identification if the project is over $50,000. Will we need policy changes or code changes, ordinance changes to do it? Will we need more staff or consultants that we don't currently have? And then will we have to pay overtime for the thing to be successful? So at least one of them, it's quite likely we would have to pay overtime for it to be a successful project, and we'll identify that. I didn't list, and I have pens for city staff to write in notes. And we can put it here, so Steve, Chief, in the over 50K, what I didn't include is when we need specialized equipment for the thing to be successful, so let's write that in. So that's the activity, and then we'll take this stuff, I'll put it together in a spreadsheet, and then bring it back and we can look at what it is and get going on some of these projects.
Okay,
Yeah.
go ahead. I have a question on, project to support outdoor dining. So I'm trying to envision how that wouldn't end up being something that would benefit one specific business and be against the business. Like, what are we thinking of? A community dining area that more restaurants could use, or like, what would that, I don't know exactly what that would entail.
I don't either.
Okay.
So the survey with kind of pre-populated questions was increased pedestrian friendliness such as safer crosswalks or outdoor dining opportunities. So you may see from city staff, while we're kind of simultaneously doing that exercise, that might be a difficult to implement project. But there might be high interest in it. So somewhere we're gonna try to find that sweet spot of things that staff can easily implement at a reasonable cost and the stuff that council prioritizes.
Okay. Okay, so for anyone joining us online, probably will be 5 to 10 minutes of not any direct talking or discussing as we go around and do this exercise.
And then I have extra pens, and if there are any other economic development ideas that you have while you're doing the exercise, I can put in your sheet up and we can list those as well. So if you have those, I'll get a new sheet and have it.
I like the line where we really need to support outdoor dining and buy a parcel and then put a bunch of picnic tables there or something like that. You know,
But I wanted to do simultaneously, so we're not,
yeah, all my dots are going to be part. Yeah. And there's no point, so you can put all your dots in there when you're really. Or should you do the same colors? No. All the ones that you have.
Given the weather's good in the courtyard, which is private property,
Yeah.
right? Jerry owns it, lots of people do it, he doesn't put it on,
Right.
yeah. Money talks, right?
if you need this sheet that will,
I really want this, it's just, I want it like a group of people who want it, like I don't think we can go for a first statement. I really just.
And you all
want to like. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Even your pink dot.
But my last act, the one during snow, then I will pile up all the snow decisions. And also get fired.
I'm not.
So we're just writing in.
Yeah, like we do.
Oh, you use this on.
So that's a little tricky. But I really think that's so I have a lot of people out there and I live in Paragraph. Really far on.
Well,
Yeah.
we can't. For the side, and then you want here to be on the culture.
well, that one,
But big.
Like, they don't age well, how, do you know what I mean? Like, so, wouldn't it be better to pour the stuff that you could have in there? Yeah. I don't think it's like that. So that's why I think portable stuff could eventually be better. But then having that, it was long.
and you might get.
I think we got to remember we were in a drawing. Well, it's just something that we might not.
I thought it, I wish I could.
You can, I think.
I installed it on our computer, the technology, so. we can come in. There's more, right?
Oh, very good. They want to make money go to season. Breathe more, I try to do that thing on free. We tried it on the.
Yeah. It doesn't have to be a punch card.
Something, yeah. Well, some of them, I think the one was a scavenger hunt where you had to take a picture of the. You had to find them. Yeah. You had to, you got there, and all this interactive. It's just fun.
Doesn't fully.
So.
I had one, like five. And then that must be good, right?
But we have to have cameras.
Yeah. Well, like, I know there's confirmation, like that below, cover area. I'll put it on your book, you know, like, so that I cover it.
Wait, what?
Like, we're mini.
Are they gonna be part of the operation?
Maybe and down to.
Oh, yeah. They do love rats.
Oh, but if we put that down, if someone is sitting there, then we're. There were two benches. You just need like more kind of, but. Even there.
Coming up, model route.
Yeah. Yeah, we had time.
No, there's actually.
Well, listen, you're gonna have to do just mission waterfall.
Yeah.
And
It's hard to tell when you're writing on these things, like scientific.
It's scientifically proven, and people are watching you as well, something. Yeah.
It's already, when I go back and look at it. it'll,
Yeah, but I think it would talk about the energy card. Oh, I didn't. So I think when I think of public charter, what did that mean? How does something, it's more.
This is not my personal number, I would say, they're way to apologize, but I don't want to become like a criminal.
the electrical. Are under. So probably get with solar, it's winter right in the hour.
You had another name. No.
We had pretty good luck. The one at Judd, like, that's every day, is out, there's no real. With personal. The one at Third and. Fuller, the plastic stuff that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So they do. You love,
Yeah.
out of this property backside of,
Yeah.
Spanish.
Yeah.
There's a couple of, fixed amount of radar.
Yeah.
And those,
I have one now.
right?
And I really.
So it's just what we want. And so whatever they are doing now. That much like the buttons and they spray it. We can change that into their brain. The top, they go down kind of bubble in a while. I think something that could help my friends in the south, like use certain kinds of things, we change the lights. I don't think that those lights all are new and, you know, early, so they get out. But I think if we add a couple lights and we can pour like pictures to be fixated on the top block. Some of the.
Right. A different kind of thing. Not something.
For 6:30 and certain time of year, but usually when the light hits the rain and I'm looking at the crosswalk, I'm liable to be.
I know.
The combination thing makes it really hard to see. So you see, I was sitting there to be helpful. And
We're gonna have to get
yeah,
it. We're marrying out.
I didn't solve it. Yeah, they're not really, they changed their element. They're really flexible nowadays. We're just, in for our projects for communicating. Those days.
For me, I'm thinking that we want to use some of the money for the grant. I think this is the what I mean. I think one of them is at least 20%.
Well, I think there's more discussion to be had. I know.
We do it now. It's a very. Small part.
Thing, because it would be like the new event, so organized, people sign up to be done.
The problem you're gonna have. Depending where they go, is there's a couple of outside of the cameras, get a lot.
Okay. Yeah. Because like, you know, they have to find some really.
I think some of these things.
That's like Riverdale. Yeah, we are, like, we set up on and, you know.
Just because they are concrete, they're differentiated, so they look different than the asphalt. I would rather press the state. Experience. Like what you know, one side, the big white.
Oh, yeah.
They don't allow it. I'd rather find them do it. $2,000 per inch, but even probably in your brain. So that's something.
That's the reason I do need.
And then at 6:25, if you have a time from the year mind and you wanted to wrap up.
Like 5 more minutes, everyone.
Yeah.
I don't want.
No, the entertainment stuff.
I get your perspective. I'm saying for my personal opinion, I see other people super bigger and you guys have but
We are more than.
like, long term,
But.
those things are successful because they have an apartment that does it, right? But then they obviously have a lot more money immediately. So I get that, but I'm just, what I struggle with is how do you make someone to, because like, for example, well, you know, we want to keep volunteering, we just don't want to keep going and take thing where it's hard to run something, but then if you catch that one person running it and helping organize people, everyone's like, oh, you know.
So we already hired someone. For community management. So are you thinking that we don't have that, or are we getting- And the communication with the water.
Right.
They say one idea to tell you that it is other sponsors, right? Yeah. Yeah. Often it's like a association or the nonprofit, I'd say the organization. Yeah.
You brought it up. If I see or you want to use it, you want to accept, you know, I'm having some, you're hearing, that is, you're, get the little cut out and you're ready to. I get it, you know, that. Maybe you do, visit you while we're your place spot, but, you know, I never know. No way to some states.
Yeah.
Figure it out.
Yeah.
No, I did you. I'm not gonna.
If the board were not gonna do something knowing. If it's that, I'm planning.
I don't know if you need that.
All right. So,
So we made a couple notes on the council side as well, which I think was the intention, right? That it would kind of spur on other, we didn't go crazy
You
though.
still able to markers. Hijack the markers.
Yeah.
and for the council members that didn't get to participate, I'll invite them to City Hall to add their
That's bad.
feedback to that. Any questions that came up as part of the exercise that Chief Steve or I could answer or, I mean, my goal at this point, once, the rest of council and the mayor are able to participate, is to then put together a document, come back to council, get some approval on this is what we're going to at least try to do in year one. And, then get started on it.
Mhm. I would just say really quick, it might be helpful, yeah, to come back and after the other council members have weighed in as well. Some of the notes, I'll just explain one that I had put up. I really love the idea of like storefront facade improvements, history, rural heritage, but obviously there's a snag with money and gifting of public funds. So without becoming, you know, I think I joked like Carmel by the Sea, you know, like code changes, anything like that, that could emphasize, I don't know realistically what could happen with that, you know, we don't want to be overbearing or anything like that, but maybe more incentivize people to look at the historical character of the town. And, you know, if they're gonna remodel or something like that. Anyways, I made a note there. And then does anyone else who made a note want to just explain really quick what it meant, just to make sure we're super clear? Or Corey, what was the note you wrote?
I made two.
Okay,
One of my notes was in the support outdoor dining situation. I think that's a really cool idea, but I think about places like Ben and some of the other towns that have like, I wrote food truck pavilion, where they actually have like, you know, a gravel area that's framed in by, you know, whatever, horse troughs filled with rocks and flowers. And you get 4 or 5 trucks, 3 trucks pulled in there and a bunch of picnic tables, something that can be easily cleared out in the winter by city staff in like literally a couple hours in the morning, so that it rots and falls apart. Can be more seasonal and a little bit more, you know, you move it in and move it out. Because like, I think there's a lot of months that those picnic tables would just sit there and not be used. So low maybe investment, but high yield in the summer and fall months maybe. And then the other one I made was just promotional events. Oh, punch card, I just did QR code, because I actually heard that come up in a meeting about the Duvall Days idea. And I thought that was a really cool thing to be able to like scan the code down at the park and like know that you can come up to CC's or wherever and get a 2-for-1 or whatever kind of deal. I think that's a little bit more of a quickly, except you could make it, I think people use it, I think it's a cool idea. And was that anything else? Oh, no, that was it.
I think just QR code, but that was pretty self-explanatory.
That's it. Yeah.
Jennifer, did you?
Yeah, on that one too, because I had talked to business about it, even if it isn't a punch card, it's a scavenger hunt where you have to take a picture of different things in different businesses and it doesn't have to necessarily be a punch card. And I think the flexibility and budget put that on there to specify it's not hard. And then the one comment I made was on expanded city sponsored events. I'm not interested in getting into the business of being an event promoter and an event like runner of events. I think, so what I said, what did I say?
Seed money.
Read it.
Your seed money for new events, not ongoing commitment.
Yeah, so if we can help facilitate new events or, you know, provide some of the, support, you know, I mean, obviously the city always gets involved in these events.
Yeah.
It costs the city money whether or not we actually hand over money or not, like we are spending a lot of money on events, but, anyway, I don't want to get into the business of running lots and lots of events that are not sustainable, that we run for. And so,
And there's lots of ways we can support events. I mean, things like, you know, putting the bill for the porta potties and, there's lots of ways to support and facilitate.
yeah.
Any other comments or? Is there anything on the staff side that you wanted to share or?
Yeah, and I mean, I'm happy to, put this in, a spreadsheet, so, we certainly didn't want to damper the experience over here. But there are a couple things that are pretty significant investment. So, there are things we could do with the enhanced sidewalk safety. The flashing lights, so there was, some requests for flashing lights for the sidewalks. They're about $50,000 each, for electric, about 70 or 17K for solar, so it depends on, which kind you wanted. The solar obviously have a little less functionality, they're, on flat trees and stuff like that, but, and we would need to get a consultant to do the lighting. It's a specialized kind of thing, so we would have to hire someone to help us with that lighting. It wouldn't be work that we would do in the house. Outdoor dining, we'd have to buy something as a city and then designate it. I didn't list here, we'd probably have to do some usage and policy work or ordinance work on the usage of it. Who would have access to it? If it became like this area, or the visitor center, right now, renting out this space is a pretty significant body of work, so, I don't know that we would need necessarily overtime, but it's a consideration, if it got popular. Need to pay overtime, we might possibly have some if we have to clean and maintain it, depends a little bit on its use. Random parking, we've had to buy a lot, maybe over $50,000. We also have stormwater management, associated costs with buying more parking. Improving signage, it kind of depends on the sign itself. Hanging water baskets, so this is one where I know there's a high degree of interest, but operationally it's a little complicated. We would need to get a watering, is that a buffalo, Steve? Is that what it's called?
That's what I call
Okay, we would need a piece of equipment to water the hanging baskets. We'd probably want to convene a board or commission to help us with kind of selecting what's in it. We would likely have to pay overtime though, because they would have to be watered extremely early in the morning and late, because we'd be impacting 203, so we'd have to have staff in really early in the morning to do it. Or we'd have to totally shift adjust a staff member to a 4 a.m. Really early morning shift. The storefront improvements, to do it and not violate public gift laws, it would have to be a massive project that we would do for like a big beautification process that benefited everyone. So the cost would definitely be over 15K, unless we only did it through code change, like you were saying. But then you could probably want to have a couple public hearings on that. If we did this a massive storefront improvement project, we would need an architect or consultant to do it. The only other one, the Main Street sound system. So I will tell you, as a city administrator, the policy work and setting the standards for what kind of music would be put through the sound system feels significant. It might not be, but I have a visceral reaction to it. So there probably would have to be some policy and standard setting for that, which would be, I don't think the cost is high. We probably would have to have someone who specializes in that, just on, kind of on retainer in some form to do the fixing of it, but kind of the comments that we came up with while we were thinking about it.
So next,
Steve, Dr. Luncius, your chief, any other comments that I didn't include?
I would say just a couple notes on art. It's not that we're not for that per se, but you don't want me picking art. And we used to have a cultural commission, right? And they were helpful, but we didn't have. One, we had zero interest because people dropped. We hadn't had a staff member running in a while, so that wasn't helpful. So I would say certainly making sure we have a staff member associated to running a commission, and maybe we have to change our code and some of the policy on the size of the commission, because I think maybe Laura could chime in. I think it was 5. So maybe it needs to be a little smaller to keep people in, I don't know, but it was hard to keep folks on it and engaged, because we don't have a project to do, they don't have anything to do, so you have to keep something going. So it needs continued momentum, not that there's not lots to do art-wise, but I think there is plenty. So just some food for thought on that. And I think safety means something different to everybody, you know, 3 docs on public safety. There's simple things like trying to add thermoplastic white reflective stripes to the crosswalk. That's a fight for us in Washington, but it's also a cost, and we'd love to do it, but again, direction and some of those funds that you think about available. Lighting too downtown. I think everybody knows, right, lighting is better now, the sodium halides that were orangey are changed to an LED, but there certainly could be more focused light at crosswalks. And that's just more fixtures. So there's things that could be done that may not be super expensive, but are going to be expensive relative to our baskets, right? So.
I'm curious on the flower baskets. Do we have any plumbing that you could no, there's no plumbing to tap into.
No, I mean, strategically, we might have enough to leapfrog some of the streets, like if we own this building. We can probably fix something up to have a dripper system, but that's only gonna run this block, right? And we don't know anything else across the way, so there's things you could do, but yeah, my vision is it's difficult. You can't really have a truck with a buffalo on the back because they're parking adjacent, right? We're not gonna close parking lot every morning.
Right.
So you're gonna have a small vehicle that can fit on a sidewalk, which we don't have. You're gonna have apparatus to go in it, a couple 100-gallon tanks, so you're not filling a jug every 5 minutes, right? So there's some forethought in what you do need to do. Not that it's impossible, but you know, a small electric rig, 15 grand, a little thing on the back that can run down the sidewalks, they can happen. But it's gonna be very incremental, right? Weather in August is different than June, different than July, so the demand maintenance certainly increases as temperatures rise. So. Maybe. Automatic triggers would be awesome.
That would be really awesome. Yeah.
Maybe you have a pumper for the back of the gator to hop on the street.
There you go.
Yeah, you get a side note, but I think it's fine.
Oh, that'd be great. Director Thomas,
You're on mute.
we can't hear you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council and members of the community. I was just going to weigh into with what Steve said on the art. We do technically have a committee that could do that, but we've struggled to keep people and also to keep staffing. So I think as that gets revamped up, that could be a good venue for some additional resources to go. I walk in the downtown a lot, and so one thing I do hear consistently is just the safety of the crosswalks. I know that's hard, but you know, cars kind of go run up and down the street, and we have to be careful when we cross it. I do like the idea of maybe trying to fix permanently our banner pole so we can always have 2 up. I know there was some consideration for a banner pole on Big Rock Road, so that might be something for our new neighborhoods, a new commercial area down there. And then we do need to do some banner replacements on the small pedestrian. So that might be an area. I know it's not on anybody's list for sure, but it's just something that I thought about. But everything else on the list, I think looks pretty good. We just have to, council just needs to make a decision. So thanks for letting me engage.
Thanks. Yeah, the banner poles I think is a really great idea and would be easy to do. Just depending on cost. Councilmember Mercer, thank you for joining us online. We just did a dot exercise for economic development, and Cynthia is gonna have this in her office, so maybe you can set up time to put your dots on.
Yeah, no, will do. Apologies for joining late, work conflict, but I can sort of see it in the background. It's not legible, but I'll swing by the office and add my contributions.
That sounds great. All right, so with that, next steps are this will come back and further discussion will be had and all that. There's a couple of written reports, the ARPA expenditure remaining and future facilities staff survey and feedback. So this is a little more than our usual written reports that show up in the CAL. So make sure you guys click on those links and look at those items. Is there anything high level that you wanted to say about them or?
Sure, so the first written report that's the response, that staff took back from our last meeting that, council was interested in having a number, of the funds that remain. And so you'll see that in the written report. Thank you to Finance Director Mason for putting that together. The future facility staff survey feedback is, a survey I put together for staff to, have an early voice in some of the work that ARC is doing with council on, just their perspective on city hall, police department, as, employees who engage with the rec center and the visitor center, their thoughts on what, might be useful for those buildings. And so I summarized the survey results and put them in a written report for you all to take a look at. And I will say we got a really good response to that survey, and want to thank all the staff members who contributed.
All right, thank you. Okay, so we're at the end of our agenda. If there's nothing else, we'll go ahead and adjourn at 6:43 and be back for our regular council meeting at 7. Thank you.
Mayor Oberlander. Mayor Oberlander, everyone is back.
Thank you, City Administrator. I'm getting some feedback there.
Mayor, someone was listening and had their device on, but it should be good to go now.
Okay, so it looks like we've got people that are not part of the city online able to comment at this point, so we're not ready for that. But on council, to help me, since I'm unfortunately have to be remote this evening, it would be great if you can, for those that are in person, can log into Zoom and put yourself on mute so that I can see when you raise your hands. It'll be a little bit easier than seeing with the owl. All right, just a minute here. All right, with that, well, folks are figuring that out. If we could, I'd like to call the Tuesday, April 4th, 2023, Duvall City Council meeting to order. If you'd please join me and those in the visitor center, if you could rise and join me in the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Clerk, will you please take the roll?
Yes, Mayor. Mayor Presenter,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem McHenry,
Here.
Mr. Isaacson, Mr. Schaefer, Mr. Mercer,
Here.
Mr. Suffolk,
Here.
Ms. Naplan,
Here.
Mr. Lovett.
Here.
Great. Thank you. We have a quorum. I know that Councilmember Isaacson is out on business this week, so unfortunately he couldn't join us, and Councilmember Schaefer also has an excused absence as well. Do we have any additions or corrections to this evening's agenda? Mayor Pro Tem McHenry?
Sorry, I was trying to raise my hand on here, but it's been a little while since I've used it. I was just gonna add a motion to excuse Councilmember Schaefer and Isaacson to the consent agenda. I
Okay.
think we're supposed to vote on it.
Are there any objections from council to add that to the consent agenda? All right, seeing none, do we have a motion to approve this evening's agenda?
So moved.
Oh, I see City Administrator McNabb's hand.
Yes, we have a correction to the agenda. We are moving the food truck ordinance from the presentations to the unfinished business as a discussion and decision item.
Okay. All right, just make a quick note here. All right, great. Do we have motion and a second to approve this evening's agenda? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. Motion passes. And with that, we move to comments from the audience. And first of all, clerk, did we receive any email written comments for this meeting?
No, Mayor, we did not.
Great, thank you. And for those members of the audience that would like to speak, please raise your hand. And then you will have, we'll call on you, and then you'll have 3 minutes to speak to whatever topic you wish. If you can provide your name and address for the record, that would be great. So I am seeing one hand raised. Do we have any others online, clerk? Do we have any other hands raised, or just one?
No, Your Honor. No, Mayor, just the one.
All right, thank you. So it looks like John, if you may unmute yourself and if you can provide your name, address, and you'll have 3 minutes to speak.
So I'm the guy who had the vandalism. I'm sorry about the feedback. I don't know what's causing it.
It looks like you might be on here 2 or 3 times. So if you've got more than one device going, you'll probably want to log out with at least one of those.
I logged on. I tried to log into another device, and the meeting operator did not let me in. So I'm in the waiting room. If you want me to,
You're not in the waiting room. You're in. You are speaking, so that means you are a panelist at this moment. I see one with a hand. I see 3 Johns on the screen that are not our clerk. 2 are muted, 1 with a hands up, and 1 without a mute. So to that person that's on, please go ahead and unmute yourself and provide your 3 minutes.
Lena. Nope, get out. Nope, nope, get out. Nope, out. Oh, are you okay though? Really? Nope, I'm gonna get out.
Okay. If we're having some trouble.
Can
with
you hear me
technology-
now? Can you
Yeah,
hear
we
me?
can hear.
Okay, great. So I had the water leak and it was very interesting to hear you pontificating about my problem without ever actually hearing the facts of the problem.
So,
The-
Mr. Toby,
Yeah.
can you please provide your name and address for the record? And I would also ask you to avoid personal comments towards members of this body.
I'm not
or our
making
staff.
personal comments. I'm just saying it was instructive that you were talking about me without letting me talk. So my name is John Toby. I'm at 16131 271st place. Oh, I'm sorry, 270th. The city changed my address. I don't know why. Anyway, I had the water leak. I have 10,000 cubic feet of water that I had to pay for. As to the comment, can I prove that I wasn't around? Yes, I can prove I wasn't around. Actually, the city can prove I wasn't around, right? They're the ones who informed me of it. While I was gone, somebody took the hose boob off of my hose, turned my hose on, and let it run for the entire time I was gone, 10 days. Okay, so yes, I can prove it. Did I report it to the police? Yes. However, they're way too lazy to actually investigate it.
Mr. Toby, I'm going to ask you to recuse from calling our police names or anyone in this room names. And if you do it again, you will be cut off.
Okay,
It's
I'm
not
sorry.
inappropriate for the rules of this meeting.
I'm sorry if you don't know that. Anyway, so I just want to ask the council one question to put this all in context. When you're talking about paying for water and the responsibility and everything, if my house was on fire, how much would you charge me to put it out?
So, Mr. Toby, this is not a question and answer session. This is a one-way providing public comment. If you have questions, you can email the council. And for the record, the city does not have a fire department. We have a fire district that encompasses the city of Duvall and other jurisdictions as well.
Well, thank you very much for screwing me long and slow. It's taken.
Mr. Toby, that's done. Mr. Toby, we're cutting you off. That is inappropriate.
Thank you very much.
Facility policy that we are going to seek to enforce at this point. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to provide public comment this evening? Seeing none, we'll move on to our consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve this evening's consent agenda?
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. Motion passes. And with that, we move on to scheduled items. I'll do a relatively brief mayor's report, but I'll let our Mayor Pro Tem fill in the details on our National League of Cities trip. But we did want to let folks know that our city administrator, Mayor Pro Tem, and I spent several days in Washington, D.C. last week for the National League of Cities Conference. Lots of great speakers. I think due to my role on the Association of Washington Cities Executive Board as secretary, I had a lot more less opportunity to go to sessions with our fellow city folks, but did have the opportunity to meet with almost our entire congressional delegation for Washington State, as well as Senator Murray and Senator Cantwell. Our Congressman Schreier is definitely getting very in tune with our concerns and issues with the city of Duvall. All of our members of Congress were quite gracious, and I think that we really appreciate the time that they spent with us. The registration for the annual conference in Georgia is open. So anybody that would like to go, it's a little more focused on kind of roles and responsibilities and policy issues, local policy issues than the federal Congress, which is really focused on congressional action. So if you would like to join, council has budget. Love to get you guys registered and have several of us attend in November. And with that, I will turn it over to the city administrator report. I can't hear Ms. McNabb.
I'm just starting.
Oh, okay. I heard something in the background. I apologize. It sounded like your voice, but it must have been my daughter's electronics.
Good evening, council. Thank you for listening to the city administrator report. So fairly short report tonight. The first, in terms of upcoming, we'll move from the agenda to the next slide. I won't share everything that will, oh, that's, oh, is that fairly new? Okay. Okay, I don't have my glasses, so I didn't see everything that was put on this slide. So there's one item, I'll come up here. So the city council meeting that is, oh, I can't see. So there's some items that Community Development Director Thomas placed on the community and commission update, but I did want to let you know that the state audit came back with no issues. And the state auditor will be coming on May 2nd to do the exit interview with council account. And then I see here that there are a couple other items. So the March of the Vegetables was last weekend. It was the weekend we were in NLC, and it was well attended. We did speak to the organizer of the March of the Vegetables, and apparently had one of the biggest turnouts that they've had. The contract for summer stage services was executed, I believe, today, so that's well on its way. And the Easter egg hunt is coming up soon. Saturday. Oh. Yes.
There was a typo, just FYI for anyone on the public, on the Easter egg hunt is April 8th, not July.
Oh, okay. Yes. It is not the 4th of July Easter egg hunt. It is the day before Easter egg hunt.
That would be fun though.
It would be. So the community development update, housing action plan. The survey response has been low. I'm moved to the next slide real quick if you would, Clerk Botero. So just want to let everyone know it's still open. We have had a slow response to the online survey. Clerk Botero, if we go back. So just want to remind you that it is linked to this PowerPoint presentation. We'll put it on the SharePoint site for council, but there are also postcards in City Hall, and it's on the website. So lots of ways to find our survey for the housing action plan. So we've had a slow survey response, but the interviews have gone well. We are currently reviewing the draft housing needs assessment from the consultant, and in, I believe, the next council meeting, you will have an update on that survey. If not the next council meeting, then the one on May 2nd. So building is preparing for the 4/18 council meeting to have an introductory conversation on building code changes. So we have 3 sets of building code changes: building, energy, and wildland fire. So over the next several council meetings, it'll probably take about 2 months. We'll be bringing all those code revisions to you one at a time to review and to adopt. All of the work needs to be completed by the end of June, so it's going to be a pretty quick turnaround for those things. We are in a pre-application for a subdivision off of Big Rock Road. We are updating the current development map. Redemption Church will begin its renovation and addition in the next few weeks. Next slide. That's the housing action plan. Director Thomas included a building and inspection update with some charts. Again, we'll make sure that we include this PowerPoint on the SharePoint site so you can see all of this data. It's been a very active month for our community development, building and inspection team. We've had 183 permit applications so far in 2023. Since 3/20, we've had 115 permits. 84 of them received, since 320 are for new residential. And the team is working pretty diligently through them, actually extremely diligently through them. There are just so many. So trying to keep on time, keeping time frames, but it's a lot of work. Next slide. The public works update was in a written report that was sent around by Director Lanchevsky Friday. So please take a look at that. And then in kind of overall city hall news, the first round interviews were completed today for the community events coordinator, communications and emergency management coordinator positions. We got a lot of great applicants, had a really good interview cycle, and the final interviews will be the week of April 17th. Recruitment is now open for the finance director. That opened partially on Friday and completely on Monday. So they're in the process of recruiting for applicants. The concession policy was delivered by our city attorney to staff yesterday. It's going through an internal policy or internal staff review, and it'll be placed on the next council agenda. And then I'm starting to plan a staff training and development day based on the training interests of staff. It'll probably be late summer, early fall. Topics selected include communication for a healthy workplace, managing job stress, how to have effective meetings, dealing with customer service issues, how to share data, and then some diversity, equity, and inclusion training. There was also an interest in developing one training that's kind of more, how do we all get to know each other and learn what we do? And there was an interest in meeting council members. And so once I get that training developed and a date set, I'll be reaching out. One thing that I forgot to add, please check your email. Our recruiter for the finance director sent out invitations for the interview, and there's a council interview day selected. So if you haven't gotten that, please let me know. The council interview date is, if I can look, but it's sometime in June. So please let me know if you got that invitation. If you haven't, I'll be sure to get you an invitation from our recruiter. And that is the city administrator update. And are there any questions?
Mayor Pro Tem McHenry?
Do you know when that was?
Yeah,
sent? Just, because I wasn't sure if I just hadn't seen it yet, or.
I haven't seen it yet.
Okay, so let me make sure that you all see it. So a bunch of us got our invitations left. It's possible it got buried. Let's see. Let me just look real quick. But I can give you the dates. So the in-person date, and there is a session to include council, will be on 6/5, June 5th. And I'll make sure that everybody gets an invitation.
Great, thank you. Are there any other questions from council tonight? Seeing none, we don't have council committees meeting at this point, so we can move beyond council committee reports and to other council reports. So Mayor Pro Tem McHenry.
Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to chime in on some of what you said for the MLC. Was really great, and thanks for our city administrator being there as well. I know, Mayor, you had a lot going on with the AWC portion, but it was nice that when we had sessions, we could split up. Or I think we ended up in the same ARPA, but go to completely different tables so that we could maximize the number of people from different areas that we were speaking with and hearing input from them. So just something again to keep in mind. We have upcoming, there's an AWC conference in June. The one the mayor mentioned, NLC, does a little more city focused, I think, in November. And it's always nice when at least one or two people can go because there's a lot of really great sessions, and if there's more than one of you, you can split up and go to different ones. I won't go through everything I did because I'm still working on putting together that email and downloading materials to attach for anyone who's interested, and I'll send that out hopefully in the coming week or so. And I think that's it.
Great. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Does anyone have any questions for Amy? Seeing none, do any other council members have anything they'd like to share this evening? Seeing any, so we'll move right along to unfinished business and the food truck report or food truck ordinance, led by Troy Davis, our senior planner. Oh, Mayor Pro Tem?
I'm sorry, there was a hand, Councilmember Naplin.
Okay, she wasn't up on the Zoom screen. Councilmember Naplin?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that I attended a tour and lunch with Acres of Diamonds, and City Administrator McNabb also attended, and it was really nice. So just want to share that.
Great, thank you. I know that there are a few of us that were sick and unable to attend on Monday, so we're working on getting another day on the books to do that. So thank you for going on Monday, Councilmember Naplin. All right, and now we can move on to unfinished business in the food truck ordinance with Senior Planner Troy Davis.
Great, thank you. Good evening, Mayor and City Council. For the record, my name is Troy Davis. I'm a Senior Planner here with the City of Duvall. I apologize, I did not get my presentation out to you sooner. I assume that I will share or John will share it shortly. Excellent, thank you. Next slide, please. So this is a follow-up to our previous meeting back in March on the mobile food unit. I always want to say mobile food truck, but mobile food unit ordinance. And we did make some updates based on that discussion and a few internal inconsistencies that I noticed following that meeting. So what we did is we adjusted the sunsetting of the temporary ordinance from 24 months to coincide with our CW 3670A 390, which does limit the length of interim ordinances to 6 months with a possible 6-month extension. So we just wanted to make sure that we were consistent with state law. The other thing noted in the memo was that we adjusted the word chapter to ordinance. This was prior to our attorney review. I didn't realize that this ordinance would be codified in our municipal code, even though it's temporary. So you do see that footnote or that section note in the draft ordinance that allows us to go through and codify all of the provisions of that. So that's the correction from what I wrote in the memo, provided, given the advice from our city attorney. The other thing that I wanted to clarify as I was going through kind of the map exercise was to clarify that mobile food units are only permissible on developed lots. We didn't want to have a situation where we had undeveloped commercial lots that didn't have the infrastructure quite set up to handle commercial business to operate mobile food units. It could obviously, for obvious reasons, create some complexities if you have an undeveloped commercial lot and suddenly you've got a mobile food unit on it and access to the site isn't correct. So we wanted to make sure that was off the table in terms of where they could operate. We also wanted to incorporate some comments that we received, of course, that was to ensure that food containers and cutlery that are served by the mobile food units are made of compostable material. We also wanted to ensure that generators are located wholly within the mobile food units and not exterior. And we also wanted to put forth that we will have the public hearing at the second meeting in May. As temporary interim ordinances require that we have a public hearing within 60 days of adoption. And so since we're going that route, we just wanted to put that out there that we anticipate the second meeting in May of having that hearing. Next slide, please. So this was the map exercise. I believe it was in your packet. My apologies if it wasn't. I did kind of a quick run through, quick and dirty, nothing super technical, just based on, you know, parking lots and availability. Our largest parking area in the city is the Safeway complex at the south end of town. Based on the amount of parking there, I anticipate that a lot of that size could potentially utilize our maximum of 3 mobile food units at one time. And then as you move north up Main Street, the Valley Tech Center might be able to host one. The Family Grocer, Ace Hardware, the Timberlake Church, the pharmacy, the Duvall Market Lot, and the Riverview Plaza all may be able to host one. Obviously, a further in-depth analysis would be needed to even make sure that's viable, but just based off the top of my head, basically, these are the general locations. So we figured there are at least roughly 8 locations within the city for which mobile food units could locate. Next slide. So yeah, based on the temporary interim ordinance, I readjusted our process sheet here, a little bit different from the one you saw last time. So tonight we're requesting a decision by council. And again, following the next 60 days, we plan to hold a public hearing. And I'll turn the floor back over to the Mayor Pro Tem.
All right, thank you, Troy. Can you, if you could stop sharing, that would be great, so I can see folks' faces. Excellent. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Davis? Councilmember Naplin?
I was just curious if anyone notified the chamber at all of this coming forward to council for a decision, and if we had received any feedback at all.
Laura, did you want to? Okay.
We can't hear you, Director Thomas.
Thank you. Again, Laura Thomas, Community Development Department. We did mention it when we had a meeting for the port grant, but our plan is to go back to the chamber and council once it's approved and to start working through any sort of questions that they might have. So we have not made direct contact with the entire chamber, just the board.
Okay, great, thanks.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Great. Is council ready to make a motion and approve this temporary ordinance?
I'll move to approve Agenda Bill 23-20, the interim mobile food unit ordinance.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the mobile food truck ordinance. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. Motion passes. And with that, we do not have any new business. So unless there are objections, we are adjourned. Have a great night, everyone.
Thank you.
Should let her know that the agenda so far for the 18th and the 2nd is pretty packed, so.
Just a preview. Was there anything on here that got pulled or